This is the Hero's Brain, and how you can use your hero's brain to achieve greatness. I'm Dane Spotts, and my mission is to unleash the most powerful force in the universe, your mind. Meditation. What is it? I'm Dane Spotts. The history of humans is filled with stories of amazing selfless courage amongst horrible tragedy, violence, and cruelty. Two little-known cases I'll share with you now. Irene Sendler is one, an example of courage buried in the ruins of the Holocaust. Irene was a social worker and a nurse, and when the Nazis invaded Poland and rounded up all the Jews and placed them into a walled-off area of the ghetto, Irene was allowed access, and she would sneak in food and medicine. She knew what was going to happen to all of them, especially the children. Irene and her group took action. They helped smuggle 2,500 children out of that ghetto. A phenomenal act of courage. What she did was to sedate the children and hide them in the false bottom of toolboxes, or lying in burlap sacks at the bottom of her truck. The children were then sent through a network of Christian orphanages and were given new identities. She kept their real names in a jar buried in her backyard. Irene was eventually caught by the Nazis. They imprisoned and tortured her, breaking both of her legs. She survived, however, and when the war ended, she devoted herself to reuniting children with their families, though it proved nearly impossible to do. Irene Sendler was an extraordinary human being who acted and made a difference. Another case in point. It was 1986. Unit 4 of Chernobyl's nuclear power plant was destroyed by a sudden surge of power during a reactor systems test. Everyone knows what happened next: a meltdown. The nuclear power plant at Chernobyl was spewing massive amounts of deadly radioactive material into the air. The immediate death toll was unknown, but rumored to be in the thousands. While many died initially, many more would follow. What's not well known was the story of 3 men who selflessly acted to prevent an even more substantial disaster that could have wiped out the entire region with a secondary explosion. A pool of water beneath the plant, used for emergencies in case there was a break in the cooling pumps, became flooded with highly radioactive liquid. This contaminated water needed to be drained out, or it would blow up and vent radioactive steam into the atmosphere. The only way to do that was to send someone in to open the gate that would let the water out. 3 men volunteered: Alexei Onanenko, Valery Bezpolov, and Boris Baranov. They knew that going into that contaminated water to open that gate would certainly kill them, but they volunteered anyway. These 3 men suited up in scuba gear and swam into these radioactive waters, knowing their fate when they went in. And they opened the gate and allowed the contaminated water to drain out, preventing another more serious explosive event. A few days after their heroic act, all 3 men died of radiation poisoning. Their bodies were in fact so radioactive, they were buried in lead coffins. If not for the bravery of the Chernobyl suicide squad, a thermal explosion would have taken place, resulting in unfathomable disaster. Here's my question: what is it about the human condition that makes individuals be willing to pay the ultimate price to save the lives of others? We hear of such courageous hero stories like the 2 examples I just spoke of, and firefighters who rush into burning buildings to save people trapped by fire, the soldier who rushes through enemy fire to save a fallen brother in arms, police officers who risk their lives to save another without even thinking about themselves first. Why do they do it? Is their mind wired differently? Are we capable, all of us, of selfless acts of extraordinary courage in the face of death? I want to know why. Why are some people just wired to be altruistic? When Abigail Marsh was 19, a complete stranger risked his life to save her from a car accident. Today, she studies what motivates us to help others and why some of us are extraordinary altruists. She's a professor of psychology at Georgetown University. Her work focuses on social and affective neuroscience, researching the motivations of people who do extremely altruistic things. Through brain imaging, she studies whether some of us are literally wired to be more altruistic than others. And as it turns out, it's true that people who are extraordinary altruistic do have different wiring. She studied the psychopathic brain and then the opposite by testing a population of people who categorize as extraordinary altruists. Her study group consisted of people who donate kidneys to perfect strangers. She did extensive studies psychologically and neurologically on this group and discovered they're more empathetic and compassionate and have an ability to recognize other people's fear. And their amygdalas are bigger, about 8% bigger on average. The amygdala is that small, almond-shaped region located in each hemisphere of our brains. It plays a role in regulating emotions and emotional memory, especially related to stress and fear. She asked the altruistic kidney donors in her study how they were able to be so compassionate and willing to give a complete stranger their kidney. She asked them, what makes them so special? They all answered the same: nothing. There's nothing about me that makes me special. This was significant. The reason why they were willing to selflessly donate to a complete stranger was because at their center, they don't see themselves as being different or more important than anyone else. So donating a kidney isn't that big of a deal because they see themselves as the same as others. Think about that for a second. It's not just being more empathetic or being less egocentric. They're wired to see themselves as the same as the others they donated to. This is the key to not just the hero's brain, but also, I might argue, the evolution of our species. I see myself as you. In a conscious universe context, you can argue, I am you, literally. We're made of the same stuff. Our consciousness is connected. In fact, I don't see you as someone taking from me at all, because I am you. In the world we live in today, this might be a difficult idea to wrap your mind around. It appears on the surface there's less compassion, more selfishness, and fewer extraordinary altruists, or hero brains as I call them. But is that really true? Are we as a species really becoming more cruel and more selfish? Well, the media portrays it as such, but I would argue the opposite is the case. The human condition is actually wired to be altruistic. And though there are examples everywhere in your community, only the sensational ones are ever reported on. It's not really news unless a firefighter is captured on video saving the baby from the burning building. Has anyone ever done a story on the thousands of people who donate blood every day or donate their time and money to the homeless in their community? There are extraordinary people doing extraordinary acts of courage every day who actually make the world work. Humanity is not dead, just not celebrated enough.